What's up, guys? I'm Avery. I'm Avery, the communities editor of the Capilano Courier and the co-host of Courier Corner.
And I'm Freya. I am the editor-in-chief of the Capilano Courier and also the co-host of Courier
Corner.
Corner.
Thank you guys so much for being here with us today. Today we're talking a little bit about our women's empowerment issue. What's up, guys? And we also got to talk to Bridget and Jayde, two of the longtime editors here, which was very fun. Yeah. Oh, also, do you want to hit us with a land acknowledgement before we start?
Absolutely. I do want to state that we are acknowledging that we are on the Musqueam, Squamish, Musqueam, Squamish, Sechelt, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. But I do also want to state that at the Capilano Courier, we try our hardest by acknowledging Indigenous peoples and the land that we live in, because Indigenous people come first to us, and making sure that we're acknowledging them as best we can. And stating a land acknowledgement only is the first turning point to actually acknowledging Indigenous people. So at the Courier, we try to uplift and raise Indigenous voices the best we can. So us doing land acknowledgements is only the first step to acknowledging the land. So I think that's important to say. And us doing land acknowledgements is just a blanket statement. And at the Courier, we try our hardest to do a lot more than just that.
So true.
Yeah.
Indigenous Center is doing so many things right now at the end of the year for events. They were just holding one at the Birch Building, but they're all over, especially outside now that the weather's getting a little bit warmer. So make sure to look for them on Instagram, and you can go to a ton of their events, which are good.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, let's get started with our episode.
Cool. Hi, guys. Thanks for
Hello.
being here. Do you want to start by introducing yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Jayde Atchison. I'm the opinions editor for the Cap Courier.
Cool.
And I'm Bridget Stringer-Holton. I'm the news editor.
Awesome. What did you guys do when you were at Cap before you graduated?
I have a degree in communications, but I also have an associate's in liberal arts, and I have a certificate to work with kids with special needs.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Bridget?
Yeah, I studied in the communications program, so I have a Bachelor of Communication Studies, but I also did business administration as a minor.
Cool.
My last year was the first year that they introduced it, so I just snuck that in.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Cool. And when did you guys graduate? Remind me.
I graduated February of 2020.
Nice. Nice.
I was spring 2022.
Cool. Nice.
Looking
Awesome.
back on your time at Cap, do you know why you chose this school? Do you have a distinct memory?
I came here right out of high school to do the program to work with kids with special needs, and this was the only place that kind of offered a program like that. And then I kept going to school, and it was just, I was already here, so I might as well keep studying. I liked the smaller classes. I went to SFU for a bit because I thought I had to go to a big university, but I ended up hating it. So I came back to do my communications degree just because I loved the community feel for it.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, this was actually the only school I applied for. Nice. Because of the small classes. Some of my friends who were a year older went to UBC and had a class of 2,000 students. And coming from the Sunshine Coast in a really small high school, I was like, I'm not ready for that. Yeah. And it helps that my
0 to
dad
100.
teaches business here. So he'd taken me as a kid, and they sort of saw me grow up. I didn't take that program specifically, but yeah.
Cool.
That's cool.
It was a familiar place, kind of.
Yeah, totally. What was your favorite moments being here at Cap during your time here?
With the communications program, I got to do a little trip to Victoria. We did a day trip, and I got to speak to some of the representatives about issues that were going on at CAP, and that was really special to me. And it felt like I actually got to use my voice instead of just sitting around doing nothing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Bridget?
Yeah, I think also just being involved on campus in everything that I wanted to almost, because when I came, they sort of said, it's a commuter campus, there is community, but it's maybe harder to find, but I just joined every single club possible. So I was part of the CSU, now I'm part of the Courier. All sorts of the International Business Association. So I think my favorite part was just getting to meet different people. And like Jayde said, your voice feels heard. I ran for the Senate and managed to get on that. At UBC, where I am now, I ran and campaigned and wasn't even close. So I think it's just the big opportunities.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot here. I think that's the nice thing about being in a small school is that there's a lot of opportunities, and there's more of a chance for you actually to be a part of the community because there's less people like UBC or SFU. Yeah,
Yeah, it is interesting that both of you guys ended up going to bigger schools. But so for you, was it you were at Cap first, you went to SFU, and then ended up coming back? Is that what happened? Yeah. What made you turn away from a bigger school like SFU and return?
I felt like a number. I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere because it was just you go to class, it's in a freaking dungeon of a building. It was meant to be like a prison, and it just felt so robotic. As we're here, felt more heard, and I could ask for help and they knew my name instead of just, oh, you're student 345, like great. So it felt a little bit more especially with any learning disabilities or any needs. It was actually taken into consideration, like, hey, someone's not doing well, I'm not doing well, my financial situations, I have to take a shift, I can't come into class today, whatever the need may be. My profs here were much more understanding because they knew who I was and they knew my academic quality, as opposed to like being at a big school where it was like if I didn't come to class, no one cared.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
What about you, Bridget? What was like your experience compared to being at CAP to UBC, and like the pros and cons of that for yourself?
Yeah, I love UBC, but I wish CAP had like graduate programs that I could have taken. I would have stayed here.
Right.
I think like what Jayde was saying about being a number, like I'm taking an undergrad poli-sci course and there's over 100 of us.
Yeah.
So I don't know the teacher. There's still teachers at CAP. Like I emailed Ted Hamilton the other day to say hi. Like that's something I'll never do of like, I mean, in the journalism program at UBC, yes, but any of the other courses that I've taken, like I don't know the prof well enough to ever like say hi to them on the street or something.
Right, totally. Yeah, I feel like at CAP there's like more of a human sense, more of a community. I think that's a big thing here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then speaking about the journalism program, or sorry, the communities program here. Wait, communications. I was thinking about two of the things we just said. I was thinking about what we were just talking about, but thinking about the communications program here at CAP, do you feel like you gained a lot of relevant experience that's been really helpful now that you're moving on into your professional adult life? You guys,
Definitely, for me, I got to keep working. The communications program brought me to the Courier because the one of the old EICs was Rachel, and I was in a few classes with her. We were in the same like start of the program, and she reached out. She needed, she wasn't I think maybe she was just an editor or writer at that time, and she asked me to do like a quick little like 200-word book review because she knew I read a lot, and I had never written for anybody other than a paper before, so I got like a thrill out of like flipping the old school paper open and seeing my name, and was like, oh, I want to keep doing this, and realized I actually did have a knack for writing, which I guess led to like 5 years later I'm still here.
Yeah.
But I also public speaking. I never would have been able to even do this before.
Right.
So, and now I talk to people for a living on a plane. So
Totally.
Very publicly.
Yeah. Cool. And then
My answer would probably be really similar. I took the article writing class that everyone has to take, first year communications, and I thought this is actually fun. It was published in the Courier, and then I just kept writing because I was like, hey, I can get paid. This is fun.
yeah.
And that sort of snowballed into, hey, I think I actually like journalism. And that's the Courier's where I got all my first samples.
That's so cool. And what was your first experience with the Courier? Like thinking back to like the first time you saw it, or like first time you were like, oh, this is an opportunity. What was that like for you guys? And like what year was that as well? Like what publication year was it?
2016 for me.
Oh yeah.
And it was the old like really big newspaper looking, where it was a weekly publication, and you know I always saw it on stands, but I was unfortunately one of those students that just walked by it and didn't really participate in it. I know, I'm sorry.
It's so many.
I've learned the ways.
Yeah.
But once I had my name in there, it was kind of an inspiration to read all the articles, and then I wanted to, even if I hadn't written for an issue, it was, you know, I wanted to keep reading it because it was just so cool to see other students, and it was relatable. It wasn't just picking up the North Shore News and going, oh my god, I don't want to read about this right now.
Right.
Like it was, you know, interesting student related stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, mine would have to be I think it might have been before 2018, but I started at CAP in the fall of 2018.
Right.
But I was at orientation with my dad, and he was like trying to introduce me to as many people as possible. He's like, these connections will help you out someday at some point. Just every person, even if you didn't know them, he's like, did you know this is my daughter? And they're like, who are you?
I love that.
Yeah.
Such a supportive dad.
Yeah. So he took me to the table, and I talked to Christine, who was EIC.
nice.
Oh, yeah.
And she sort of explained what it was, and yeah, I did like a couple journalism things in high school, but it was mostly like on TV, which is ironic because now I love like editing a sentence 27 times before anyone ever hears it.
Right.
But yeah, so that was my first introduction, and then through the article writing class, I think every year they come and sit. I came and sat like basically right here, I think.
That's so cool.
And and then I started coming to the pitch meetings.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, what were some of the biggest differences you noticed in, I mean, I don't know if in 2018 we were still doing weekly newspaper style, but back then, what do you feel like's been the biggest difference?
Yeah, till Rachel.
Yeah. So I think it was the turnover was 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the last year of like the actual tabloid
Yeah.
newspaper.
Yeah.
Big. We always go over there.
Yeah.
It rubbed off on my fingers and my back.
It was like a legit newspaper where you're like, oh my god, my fingers are black.
That's crazy. Do you feel like the content has changed a lot since you first started reading it, or is it mostly just our formatting difference?
It's gone through waves. Like we had no sports section for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, because we couldn't find any writers or anybody that knew anything about the sports world, and we just weren't like capable of filling that spot. And we would beg. We had one column that was and it was a different writer every month because we couldn't get them to like continue. So it was a different athlete, and I actually got one of my sister's like childhood best friends to write one, and I was like, I'll edit the hell out of it. Don't worry, like here you don't have to be a writer. Like just tell me what it's like being a student athlete at CAP. And it was, so I think it's gone through waves. And we used to do our pitch meetings in person here in this room, and it would be at lunchtime or whatever, and people would come in and anybody would pitch.
Right.
And I wasn't an editor at that point, but it wasn't always on the editors to have those pitches in. And now it is like more of people can still pitch their ideas, but primarily it's the editors, section editors giving that kind of inspiration.
Totally.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think looking back at all of your years being a part of the Courier, what are some moments that like stood out to you as like maybe some more positive moments and some moments that you're like, oh, this is a tough time right now that's happening? Yeah.
Go first.
I think Bridget and I have been around when it got like real tough.
Yeah.
Where we had some changes and there was not enough staff, so it was everyone was like 3 sections you were editing, and it was just overworked, struggling to find writers because there was some weird period. It must have been
there
COVID.
was a year where I like wrote the whole section for like months, and please somebody try news. It's not that scary, I promise.
Yeah.
And like when I was a staff writer, I had to do a variety. I couldn't just do 1 or 2 articles. I was responsible for 4 or 5 articles per issue. And
pitching too.
And had to do different sections. So I had to write news, arts and culture, opinions, features. Like I was doing it all.
Yeah.
And then whatever was left over, I'd have to pick up as well.
It's a lot. It's way too much for an editor.
Yeah. And I mean, and then there was, our very dramatic shift into Freya becoming.
That was a lot.
But it was kind of what's the spark we needed, because then things started getting kind of on track again, because there was months where it was just, the September came out in November. Yeah. And November came out in like July. There was no timeline, and it got really frustrating that the communication just was not streamlined enough, and we were short staffed anyways, but still the communication was kind of crazy. So.
Yeah. It's a very interesting time. That was like, I think a year into me being with the Courier. I think I got in October of 2021, which even then it was like slowing down a large part of the crew, as you guys know, that left and weren't there anymore, just because they were graduating and stuff. Naturally, like that natural transition happens. And then over the summer there wasn't much change, and then suddenly it's like, oh, you're gonna do all of the visuals. I was like, okay. And then like 4 months go by and it's like, oh, you're gonna do it all. I was like, Oh, okay.
Really jumping into it.
Yeah, just getting really involved now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Freya, when you were then coming into, because I guess that would be then when you became a co-EIC.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
true?
with
Yeah.
Matt.
When you were coming in there, did it feel like you had a huge amount of weight on your shoulders to like fix all of this stuff? Or was it starting to be fixed by then already?
I think at that time I was already picking up a lot without realizing like what the EIC role was and that I was actually doing it in part. Like from your perspective, what do you think was kind of happening during that time? Because I was kind of just guesstimating what was happening because I didn't really know what was kind of going on because I didn't really work in the Courier even the year before because I was staff illustrator, was basically just a contributor at the time. But yeah, I feel like there was a lot of weight on my shoulders, but at the same time, like I didn't know in comparison what that looked like, so I didn't know if that was a lot or not. And looking back now, it was. But I also put it on myself too, like I took it on. But from your perspective, both you and Bridget, what did you guys think? Like from your perspective, how did that go?
So I actually wasn't here.
Yeah, you weren't
Yeah,
here
you
yet.
were-
Yeah.
You came in February.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So that summer, like I was super excited to have Alicia be EIC again.
Yeah.
And she would call me and we had all these plans, and then unfortunately life happened and we couldn't continue, and that's okay. And
It happens.
yeah, it totally happens. It wasn't anyone's fault. It just kind of fell to the wayside. And I actually remember being offered the EIC position, but at that time I was just changing my whole life anyways and starting a whole new airport job, and I couldn't take it on, and I didn't have any of the like background side of the the Courier, so I just felt like I'm not capable of that.
Right.
Like, I'll edit.
Yeah.
But it felt like things were kind of hazy, and then you and Matt kind of took that and went, no, we're gonna correct this. And then we were still struggling to hit those deadlines, but by the end of the year I think we got April's out in April, and it was oh my god, we finally did it. Like, and it was like this like win for us. Like, we were so freaking excited to like finally have a win. And then after that it was like you guys decided to continue, and then after that it was like, okay, here's all the things we're gonna do. And it actually happened instead of here's what I want to do, and we'll see.
Yeah. I think we had some pretty big goals with not the right crew to do it at the time.
Totally.
Yeah, which happens. I think that what we wanted to do over that summer, I remember talking to the EIC at the time, and she proposed that we go completely in person again, like, and do weekly issues, which is huge. That's a massive ordeal, especially for like a magazine like ours, where it's a 10-day turnaround for our magazines. So it's near impossible to do a weekly magazine with a 10-day turnaround for print. Doesn't make sense. And so, I mean, it is possible we could do it, but in a team of, what was it, 4 people? Yeah. 4 people. That doesn't make sense. That's not possible.
No. We would have all been like pulling our hair out.
Oh my God.
Just crying all the time.
No, that was crazy. And then from your perspective as a contributor at the time, what was that like for you? Like seeing the Courier from the outside, seeing that we're producing our issues 3 months too late.
I remember, I think I was so eager at that age that I knew I had wanted to get into writing and journalism well before then, and so I was just like so excited to get to be in it. I remember I definitely emailed with you maybe 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago. I definitely emailed with you about something back then as a contributor. But I think the whole idea of the Courier was like this mysterious thing that like I didn't really understand. I was like, I didn't know you guys had an office. I didn't know anything about any people who were behind it. I think I'd been to one meeting maybe with Alicia and this one person. It was like the year before you were running to be EIC, somebody else was, and I got to be there, and I was like, I'm voting, but I don't know who any of these people are.
I did the same thing. I was at that meeting too, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I've
never met any of you
because I want to be a part of this, but I don't know what this is.
I think it, to me, ever thinking about having a really hands-on role in the Courier felt like it would never ever happen. But it is funny, I think, once you like learn where we're located and once you like come here, all
You're
of
like,
that like
"Oh, it's
scariness
okay."
goes
Yeah,
away. It
yeah.
was just like, oh,
Yeah.
Avery, this is really not that serious. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really not.
It
Yeah.
is also like really cool being a senior editor, I guess, because I remember you starting to write for me.
Yeah.
I was like doing my opinions articles, and I was like, hell yeah, Avery.
I know. I did like
Yeah.
a thrift
Yeah.
store piece, and
Yeah,
I was like,
and I was like, oh, cute little writer over here, and now I'm like,
Bright eyes.
yay.
yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I think
I
it is
love it.
cool. It's nice having people that have been here for so long because I think you guys can be really valuable to give perspective that, like, I mean, I certainly can't give as someone, what, I've been here like 3 years. Freya, even you're still new. Like,
Yeah.
it's so nice getting to see how things used to be done because I think we end up taking, like, even me just looking at some of the old issues from way before I was here or like some of the old videos, it's so neat seeing all the things that like I would change if I was in positions, but also like all these things that I'd love to bring back eventually that take all this extra work. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. There is this one daunting question on here that I want to ask you guys, and I know the answer to, and we're kind of dabbling around it, but did the Courier almost die at one point? In your
Yeah.
perspectives,
I
what did you
think
think?
so.
Like
Yeah.
full die. It was close.
It was close.
It was-
I don't
Yeah.
think
like
it's not that it could never be revived. It was just, I think, to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I sort of saw it getting more momentum, and then I reached out and I was like, "Hey, there's been no news
No,
for
literally.
months."
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I just like was still in news editor brain, so I was coming up with all these things of like, "Oh, they could write about that. Oh, they could write about this." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Maybe I should tell them."
Yeah.
that would be helpful. So
Oh
I
my
reached
God.
out to Matt and said, "Hey,
Yeah. The
Yeah.
second he pitched that to me, being like, should we bring Bridget back? I'm like, yes. I like took a week
Genius.
to find one news article idea, and it came up with like the doomsday clock idea. And I was like, this isn't even that good. We need Bridget here now.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a struggling time, I think, where there was no communication with anybody. And I think it was like early September where we had like our Slack channel set up and everything, and like we were
Right,
good to
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And there was just nothing, no plan. I think we had like meetings set up or like check-ins for weekly
Yeah.
things, and it just
kinda
didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it was really weird. And then I started reaching out to the EIC, and then also Matt and you, and I was just like, so are we doing
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I remember being like,
Yeah.
hopefully."
like,
Yeah.
are we gonna do pitch soon? Or,
Right,
Like it
yeah.
was just like, but is this on me? Like I don't know
That's
what
how I
my
felt
role
too.
is right now. Do I step up? Do I just kind
Right?
of let this go? Like,
Yeah.
I kind of need the money.
That's how I felt too. I was like, I just got here and I don't really know what's happening. And then now I'm like production / art director, but I also don't know if I'm laying out the magazine or if that's somebody else.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to be like, oh, I'm actually doing that. I'm laying out the magazine now. What? That's so weird. But then
Yeah.
I was like, wait, we don't even have a magazine to lay out now. There's no pitches or anything, and it's
Yeah.
mid to end September. So that was a really weird moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you started like maybe less than a year before that. Like I
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I sent you a message of like, "Hey, can you
Yeah.
take a photo of this thing?"
Yes. Oh my God, I love that project. That was fun. That was the Earthworks
Yeah,
project.
the
That
trail building.
yeah, that was gonna happen, but then didn't.
Yeah. But that was the first time I met you. I was like, "Hey,
yeah.
can you go take some photos?"
Right? I know, and that was when I was like the on-call photographer, and that's all I did. I was just like
Your
waiting
humble
in the group
beginnings.
chat.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so
Oh,
exciting.
God.
Yeah. So, what are you guys thinking for next year now? Because I feel like I've
Yeah.
been curious about that like this whole time. Do you think you're coming back to the Courier another year in the same positions? Do you feel like you're phasing out your time here? What do you guys think you want to do?
What do you?
I mean, I can't come back because I'll be going to CBC and we're not allowed to
True.
have any other jobs. And I just feel like even if they did let me, trying to do that while trying to work on September.
A lot.
And I've also been here a long time, and yes, but I'd be happy to like come back and help whoever does news.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, I know where to go for pitches most of the time, but it's taken time obviously to build up, like to know where to look. Even when I first started, I would just like spend a half an hour just like randomly going on the internet trying to find anything, something.
Yeah. That's so exciting for you, actually. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about your CBC position, if you're allowed to?
Yeah, it's official now. It's on,
Very
it's
cool.
on the website, so I know that I'm definitely going.
It's so good.
hired.
Yeah.
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 I was just
Can't
waiting
take
to
it
tell them. I was like, I have it in writing, but I'm gonna wait until my picture's on the website,
Yeah.
and then I'll just like flood all of my social media with it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Joan Donaldson. So I'll be a Joan Donaldson scholar, and she actually helped found News World, which is now like CBC News.
It's
So
huge.
it's in her honor.
It's massive.
And they pick like, yeah, I think this year it's 11 But it's usually around like 8, 9, 10, 11 journalists across Canada, and it takes months for them to pick.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's
so
such a huge
awesome.
achievement. Yeah.
Thanks.
Congratulations,
So
man.
is it considered like a full-time position then at CBC where
Yes,
you're
for 4
essentially just an
months.
employee? Wow.
Yeah.
That is
When does that start?
May 5th.
Right on.
Yeah.
Super
Graduate, finish school, go to Toronto.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god, in Toronto too. That's so cool. Yeah.
I'll be there for 2.5 months, and then I'm coming back to the Vancouver bureau for my last, like, my regional placement. We could go anywhere in Canada, but I'm hoping I can, like, wiggle my way into a job after.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Yeah.
I think you could probably do that though. With
Yeah,
your
we have faith.
credentials and like your skill set.
She's like, hey, I've written like 100 articles for the Capilano Courier.
You're also the valedictorian. You know, you
Yeah.
have a master's
Massive.
degree. Yeah. That's so
No big
exciting.
deal.
Yeah. It's like kind of a big deal in Canada. Yeah.
Pretty
It's
huge.
very cool. Yeah.
Just right for us.
Back in the day.
Pretty big person over here.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It is scary though after those 4 months are done. Like I hope you get a job. I hope
Yeah. All
Yeah.
our fingers and
I
toes
will
are
somewhere,
crossed.
but like don't know where.
You definitely will
Hopefully
somewhere. That would be crazy if you didn't get a job after this. Yeah. Okay, so then
Well, you
Jade,
have one here. So.
Oh.
You
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can
You
just come
always-
back here. Yeah.
we'll
I think
consider
people would
you.
be like, you haven't been here for a while. I'll be like, oh, I graduated in 2022. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
you will have to
It's fine.
reapply, but you know, hopefully. Okay, so then Jade, tell us a little bit about what you're doing next year.
I mean, if you guys will have me, I would love to keep working. I love doing opinions, and I think that in the past it was really hard to fill that position because it is kind of a nitpicky section where you have to really drill in that it's an opinion.
Yeah.
You need to have one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I understand that this is a student publication, and I mean, I was a student, but if that's the priority, that's a priority. But I'll keep writing. Like, I'll keep me on that pitch list, and I'll write when I can. But yeah, I'll still be flying. So
Yeah.
that's the main job.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the foreseeable future. You know,
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Well, how long have you been in your flight attendant position now?
April will be 1 year.
It's huge.
That's really cool.
That's
yeah.
massive.
Yeah.
What have been your favorite moments of being in that role?
Going to Hawaii, the flight perks, going to
Yep.
Scotland, on my own personal trips. I had someone slip me a number on a flight.
Love that.
That's such a classic
Yeah.
cliche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it on the napkin?
Yeah, it was on a napkin. Yeah.
That's so sick.
Yeah, no, I've met some great people, great layovers. You know, I've seen the Northern Lights a ton of times from inside the aircraft.
That's so cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's you get things that you probably would never get to do otherwise. So I think every day is kind of new and exciting, and that's my favorite part.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. I'm trying to come up with a question right now.
Well, we should ask about the cover because
That's a
talk about
huge
that.
thing. So, Bridget, you had the opportunity to interview all of the past female EICs, which is huge. I tried to like create a lineup for you to contact, and I kept coming up with more and more and more and more of them. And I was like,
Yeah.
let's go all the way back to like the 80s if we can. And we got to like 2011. I was like,
Yeah.
this is already too many.
Basically.
There's
Yeah,
so
no.
many women EICs in the
And they all
past.
said yes. That was
Yeah,
the
that's
big thing
awesome.
that I was surprised
Yeah.
because people are sort of off doing their own thing, right? But they all said yes.
wow,
That's huge. Yeah. How did that article go for writing and interviewing? And how was that for you?
Yeah, it was actually like fairly easy because it was a Q&A.
oh, very easy.
I
Yeah.
think if I'd had to like compile all this stuff separately and like weave it into like a story, it would have been a lot harder. That's actually like why I proposed it as a Q&A, because they're all doing such different things. I feel like transitioning would have taken up so much room.
Yeah.
And it would have been so awkward to be like, you know, here's what this person's doing, here's what
Anyway,
this person's
yeah.
doing, here's what this person's doing, but like without making it just choppy and awkward.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's why I sort of did it as a Q&A, so you can just see like, you know, what are you doing, and then everyone just has their own little section.
Yeah, I love it. And we used to do a lot of Q&A articles in that format of like question, answer. And we haven't done that in the past year. And I think that was so successful. And I loved it. And we have the little copy here. Here, let me
It's
pull
so
it out.
cute.
to get the
Yeah, it looks.
actual-
Our copies look so good lately. They're so cute. I
Yeah,
know I'm
this is
biased, but
So it's a 2-spread thing. This little guy, can you see? And then we also have the second page, which actually has more of the article detailed. Yeah.
who is the illustrator for this one?
It was me.
Oh, that's so convenient. I remember you telling me this.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the reel of like you putting it together.
Yeah.
So good.
I thought that was really fun to do. I haven't done the cover ever before, and
Really?
ever. Yeah.
I'm surprised actually.
Yeah, me too.
I know. I always thought like, oh, if I'm EIC or if I'm co-EIC or even the art director managing all the illustrators, I should give everyone their first chance. And then once I find something that like really pulls at my heartstrings, and I'm like, oh, I should do this cover. I saw the mood board for it, and the theme was women's empowerment. And I was like, that's me to a T. I mean, come on, I gotta do it.
And your
And
EIC,
you're the
their
EIC.
EIC.
Yeah, it just kind of turned out really well.
That's really cute, actually. I'm so happy that you ended up
Yeah.
illustrating that. Yeah.
That was a lot
Full
of fun.
circle.
Right? Totally. I think initially we were doing what was it, International Women's Day as the cover,
Yeah.
and then instead I came up with the EIC idea, and then I was like, actually, can we do the cover for that instead?
Can I do it?
Can I
By any chance? Yeah.
like as EIC? Oh my god. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I think it was a great solution though, because we wanted to include you in the article and not just be
Yeah.
like, here's all the past EICs, just like here's female EICs.
Right.
There wasn't room.
There
Because
wasn't
we
room.
already like went. I had to
I
ask
know.
people to cut down stuff.
Right,
Wow.
yeah. I
Stop
remember.
talking.
Yeah. Too much information.
Too interesting.
I love that you're
Yeah.
telling me all this stuff, but we don't have a room. I wish I had like 10 pages.
I know.
Right?
Did you notice, were there a lot of past EICs who are now in anything with writing or journalism? Is there a connection?
Not really.
Yeah, there really
Like I
wasn't.
don't remember
That hurts my
exactly.
heart.
Right? But I expected it to be like, oh, I was EIC, now I'm in journalism. Oh, I was EIC, now I'm in like freelance writing or an editing position.
Anything.
Yeah. But there was like, I mean, it's a lot of amazing things. I think there was like teaching, dentistry,
Yeah,
like all sorts of stuff.
There was a
Research,
lot.
comedy, like,
it was really
Comedy,
cool.
that's cool.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, some stand up. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I have a question specifically more so towards I guess I can also phrase it for Jade too, but for Bridget, any advice for people who are wanting to get into journalism as somebody who maybe hasn't really stepped into the world of journalism or news writing in general? Do you have any advice for that?
I'm going to sound like my first year teacher. And everyone in the class is like, okay. But right? Like, that's the most cliche advice ever.
Yeah.
But I think that's how you learn. Like, I've gone to so many workshops and seminars and classes and stuff where they explain, this is the inverted pyramid. Here's how to craft a lead. But until I was actually doing it, like, that's how I learned. Just trying it and getting feedback of like, oh, actually, next time maybe you should do something else. Or maybe this information should come earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I would
That's
say,
a good
like,
one.
I mean, write for us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Always
gonna say
looking
that.
for writing.
Yeah.
Totally.
I
That's
think,
the
like-
whole point is have an editor
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
you write, and then you get better every time.
Totally.
And you get paid and you get samples.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really useful, honestly. And I think it is true having a team of editors that is willing to work with you and that also understands what you're doing from another student's perspective. Like, I think when you have, say, if I'm editing your work and you're like a freshman or something, and maybe you don't really have any writing experience, but because I've only been writing for like 5 years, I feel like it's new enough to me that I've been in your position and I know like exactly what to tell you. And
Totally.
especially for you guys, I'm sure probably also with news, but I think definitely for opinions, getting to get people who have really strong opinions, and even like if you're, I think, young and you're writing for the Courier for the first time, you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I feel like having people like you who are really seasoned in your sections, I think is really useful to people like that, just so that they know like exactly what they should be doing.
And I
Absolutely.
think it's less pressure.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
writing for us, obviously we're going to help you get something that's like publishable and really good, but I think it's different, like giving us an idea and we'll help you like turn it into and find the opinion in like a random idea. It's less daunting and a little easier than just like, I'm going to pick this giant publication
Yeah.
and compete with like thousands of other
my
freelancers and
gosh.
just send a cold pitch. Like, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so my advice is like write, but also like write in supportive environments that are there to help you get better and figure out like what you
Totally.
like writing about even.
And take
Love that.
feedback.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I
I,
think-
mean, I didn't like getting feedback when I was like started writing, and I was like, no, I know what I'm doing. And now I look back at those articles, and I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. Oof. But feedback, like where it's not personal, it's I'm trying to help you get better at writing. And we're all trying to help you get better at writing.
Yeah.
And my job is to see those flaws.
Totally.
It's a good article, but I'm here to point out what needs to be corrected, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Like, it's not a bad thing to be corrected.
Yeah.
So being open to that feedback, I think, is also really important, because no one knows everything we all still have space to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. I think as the role of editors, you have to be able to know how to critically analyze articles incredibly well and know how to give good critiques. And sometimes it can come across harsh, and that's needed. I think it's needed in a writing industry where you can be blunt and tell people like, no, this is actually the proper formatting. This is how it needs to be done. And as a writer, you need to be able to take that information and alter it. And it same goes for illustrators too. Like as an illustrator, it's the same thing where it's like, oh, that color doesn't work. It's like, oh yeah, no, actually I can see that perspective now. Yeah. Now I'll alter it. And I think that's an incredibly important skill. And I see that in both of you guys of being able to do that so effortlessly. And it's so cool. It's so cool.
I think the ones that I'm like edits where I'm like, I think this could be a different way. Like I'm always very careful to say like, this is what I think. If you disagree, like please come tell me. Like if I want to cut something and you're like, no, this is the core part of the story. Like, then like I obviously say, okay, well, can you explain to me why it's so important? And then we can convey that to the reader.
Absolutely.
I think it's also like, just because an editor gives an edit, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily like the only answer, but at the same time, like you still have to think, okay, well, where are they coming from?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, so much of writing is subjective, even in like, I think if you, obviously there's bare bones that you have to meet, especially in something like news, you can't, like there are some
you can't decide your own dates. Like,
I'm sorry, that's not how this works.
You can't decide to just like, nah, we don't need to.
And you can't be like, I'm just going to actually write news on this one side of the political party and I'm going to completely like disregard this other side.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that, but that's not like strict news. And so
you turn it to Fox News.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to be like Tucker Carlson, I guess you can do that. But I think, that stuff is really useful. But I was going to ask you, Bridget, now being in like the real journalism world, do you feel like people are a lot more ruthless than we are here, especially to like younger or like newer people, especially because you're usually the new person now coming into very established places? Are people meaner than we are?
I think actually no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I expected it to be like that, but not actually. Like I interned at the Globe and Mail for a while and everyone was so nice. Like obviously if I made a mistake, they're like, that's not how we do CP style. They'll be very like, I think they were a little more blunt. I feel like for some of my articles here, like I know maybe people haven't really written before, so I'm not going to say you wrote the date wrong, like redo it, right? I'll be like, hey, just explaining like how it usually works. But yeah, they're all super nice. And I think like maybe the edits were harsh because they're super busy. So they don't have time to like nicely beat around the bush. They're like, cut this is redundant, rewrite this, redo this. But I think like overall, I think I've also come in internship positions. So I think the understanding is like I'm new and I'm trying to learn. I think it might have been different if I got like a senior editor position or something. Then people would have been a little more like, what the? You're making this basic mistake. Who hired you?
Yeah. I have a question about what you guys would like to see from the Courier in the next 10 years. I had one-on-one meetings with all of you just to see how the past year has gone for you guys, and have asked the same question. But what are some things that you might like see as something that you would love to have happen for the Courier, and like some personal goals that you have for the publication?
I think it'd be really cool if we kept doing a lot of this digital stuff, like doing podcasts and maybe making that maybe even a weekly thing or whatever, like have it be kind of tied in and maybe talk about specific articles or whatever can kind of go hand in hand, because I love that it's evolving like this. Instead of just being the old newspaper, it's now transformed into something much more. And I think that students, now that we're kind of outside that COVID realm now where we can do more in-person things and we can involve more people, I think that would be also maybe beneficial. I don't know if it's practical to have meetings in here again, but like including those students in those pitch meetings, and maybe even if it's a Zoom call, like here, join this Zoom link if you have an idea, like let's pitch some docs together, because I think that's the way to keep students involved, because there's always a lag for like that first month. It seems like editors write all the articles for that first month, and then students get interested. So maybe even before that we can keep students interested for the September issue, and have those writers available all the time.
Totally. I love that.
And like I know it's the budget wise maybe wouldn't be possible to have a podcast all year round, but eventually maybe having the Courier be a September through August kind of thing. Totally. So I don't know if that's feasible one day, but it would be cool to see in 10 years time it's a whole year round thing. It's not a 8-month contract.
Yeah.
You know?
Even like digital exclusive in the summer or something.
Totally.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, because I mean, there's still
That's a
people
personal goal.
taking
There's summer classes, yeah.
Yeah,
summer
yeah.
classes. So
Makes sense.
maybe we wouldn't have the print issues, but it would be, you know, some just digitally, or maybe it would be just instead of a monthly, it would be a quarterly. So
Yeah.
you know, have a whole summer semester magazine. Like
Love
come
that.
out in
Yeah.
July or something. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so smart. I think that's a personal goal for me too. I think after attending NASH again this year, realizing that there was a bunch of different publications similar to ours that also work over the summer, I was like, wait, that is a thing that people are doing. Like, I feel like that's so taboo for like a student publication. But I feel like it is feasible and doable. It's just the matter of figuring out how we can do that and the budget and everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a way. I feel like, especially for digital at least.
Yeah.
And then doing that quarterly piece.
That's cool. Even like staying with, because I feel like our video production stuff is really taking a lead right now, which is cool. But if we kept doing things like reels for like summer specific things, or like we had the podcast go, I like the idea of like a podcast that's maybe like bi-weekly or something like that to keep people involved more often.
Yeah.
But that stuff would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like maybe a social media manager, if somebody wanted to just do it for funsies, and like or whoever is still like kind of on the team, like we all get a login and like, hey, like we're at the beach right now, or like, you know, like here's an event, like I'm going to Catalano, so I'll log in and I'll take real
So
footage
smart.
or whatever, and you know, then whoever wants to make a reel, because I'm old and I don't do that. But you know, I think there's avenues that, you know, if we all just kind of agreed, like, yeah, maybe we're not getting paid for this, but it's fun and we want to keep. Why does the Courier social media page have to die for 4 months
Right. Yeah.
of the year? Like, why don't we keep people kind of
Totally.
coming, you know?
Makes sense. Yeah. Totally. What about you, Bridget? Do you have any personal goals or
My
ideas?
big hope is that people like news.
Yeah.
We don't have to like
Keep them
news,
alive.
but just like, yeah, I feel like a lot of people are scared about news, which makes sense because it is a little more rigid. Because there is like the style sort of things and like having the lead up front, just like the structure, I think.
Right.
But I mean, I love news. That's what
Yeah.
I started in arts and culture and then started writing news slowly. So my hope is just that after I leave, someone else wants to keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there used to be like a lot of pitches as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of contributors or just random people that said like, hey, there's this thing going on.
Yeah.
I think the idea, like when you hear news, you think of like, oh, like investigative reporting or something, or like international breaking stories. But I think like CapU wise, a lot of the places that I go look for news, it's just, okay, what's happening that people should know about? This can be events, it can be stuff in like student politics or in meetings or changes. Like even things like, oh, they're changing like the waitlist system. I don't like that. Like even just digging into that.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, news is pretty broad. It doesn't have to be scary, and I really hope that like more people want to try it.
Yeah. I completely agree. I really like the one pitch that you had that was internships 101. I think that's a great idea, an example of how a news article can be not so scary and daunting, where like it's very investigative and reporterly, and you can have some fun with it as well. And I think that there is a couple of people that come to mind that like are actively interested in news. So I don't think it's gonna die out. I don't think that's a thing that's happening.
That's so good to hear.
No, I think news will still be very prevalent in the Courier in years to come, for sure.
Yeah, because I've always thought of it like something that's happening and something that's timely. Like even the internships thing, right? It doesn't have to be scary. Like how to find an internship, how people are finding internships, like what tips they have, like resources and stuff like that, but it's timely because everyone would be looking. So like I still see that it might not be like a hard news story of like, you know, this person tried to get an internship and all this drama happened.
Right.
But even just like how people found internships and where they're going right now. Like that's
super important to have.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Okay, well then, as we close out the episode today, and you guys are maybe leaving your time at the Courier, do you want to say a little anything you can think of about your time at the Courier? Any positive memories?
I've made some really great friendships here. I got to write, which is what I love, and this has been a passion project for me for the last 5 years of writing and then editing. And I did take some time where I wasn't working with the Courier. I think there was maybe 6 months or something. Like there was one semester.
Like at some point, I think when I first started as an editor.
Yeah. And then I came on as the opinions because there was none.
Right.
Megan left.
left
Yeah.
and I took over. Yeah. So, but I'm so grateful for the opportunities. It's helped my writing. It's helped my editing skills. Like it's just, this is a great place to be. And I encourage everyone to if you like writing, even just a little bit, if you write for yourself, write for us. It does change, the way you write and the way you think about writing.
Absolutely. Yeah. You guys are going to make me cry. Oh
Oh, that's so sweet. Right, Bridget?
Yeah.
I think I'm just so grateful because honestly, like, this is how I figured out what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
Like, I came in for communications and it was just a diploma, and then I was going to go to SFU. And then I decided to stay here for the whole degree because I love the profs, I'd made friends. And yeah, that's how I figured out, like, hey, I kind of like journalism. Going into like Massa's article writing, I thought, you know, I won't be able to do a 45-minute interview. I don't know how to transcribe. But I think by the end of it, I just decided to go to journalism school, and then I got all these jobs, probably partially because I had all these samples. Like a lot of people in grad school just didn't have any samples at all, which makes sense if you just decide you want to be a journalist later. But because I'd been doing this all along, right, I could say I was an editor, like I sort of know what I'm doing. Yeah, so I think I'm just really grateful for my time here. It's just been really great.
It's been awesome. I've loved having you guys here and like working with you guys and like having you guys trust me as like being a lot younger than you guys and having me being like this weird hierarchy little girl, like, okay, do this, do that. Like, you see yourself? A little bit, to be honest. Yeah. Thank you guys for like being here and being so awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
And that wraps our episode.
Woo!
Cheers.
Love it. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Those interviews, we did multiple interviews. Oh my God. That interview was a lot of fun.
It was so fun. I feel like I learned so much, and it was so nice to hear from some wise voices.
Yeah. We love Jayde and Bridget. They've been around for so long. And it's been so cool to like work with them and grow as a person with them too. Like they met me when I was just a little baby girl.
I feel that way too, yeah.
Just a little one. And then now we're like these strong, independent women.
I know.
Rocking the world.
They taught us so much about editing, and now you're the big boss.
Don't know what I'm doing, but here I am.
It's very cool. Yeah. So for our women's empowerment issue, we have a couple of things to highlight. We're picking a couple, so you have to bear with us.
Bear with us. We have a couple shout outs this issue.
Do we want to start with the back cover?
Yeah, okay. So for the month, little fun fact. Every single issue that we've done, every term we switch up the back piece to be a fun little interactive thing. In past, we've done monthly tarot card issue. We've done crossword puzzles. I think the term before we did recipe of the month. And this term we have been doing this Courier Companion interactive page, which is actually very specialized, where we have even perforated the page where you can easily rip it out. I'm going to do it as an example because we have so many issues. It's not going to matter.
Yeah, it'll be okay.
Let's see. Ooh, not doing it well, but it's fine.
You can just
It's okay.
imagine. Oh, wait, here, I got it.
It
Check
rips
that
out
out.
so easily, and you can cut it out really easily and then tape it together, stack it together, and it creates a fun little companion for you. In past issues we've done, I think it was just the Courier Companion in general, and it was this little student that you could dress up wearing like oversized clothing and like had eye bags and carrying like a monster can, and it was just like your typical university student. And it's been a lot of fun. This one is like our dancing companion, talking about body positivity and how fruits relate to body and all of that. It's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend grabbing an issue if you can, cutting it out, tagging us on Instagram, and showing your little Courier Companion. And then we'll have a little collective. It'll be so cute.
A collective of Courier companions.
So cute.
That would be awesome.
And then the other one I wanted to shout out for illustrators. This is an illustrator that has been working actively with us for a very, very long time. They are a third-year illustration student in the IDEA program, and it is Johanna Locher. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. I usually just call you by your first name. But it's for the article Pink Tax in the Arts and Culture section on page 44 and 45. And it's just so much fun. I love Johanna's illustrations. She's been illustrating us for a very long time, and big shout out. Love it so much. You need a holding it up higher. Down a little bit. Thank you, Dylan. A little bit over there. We go.
Into the fisheye.
There it Yes. And what about for writers?
So for writers, we're actually, speaking of for writers, we're doing Writers of Capilano University. I just thought of that. That's crazy. This one's particularly interesting to me because I didn't write it. I had nothing to do with it, but my good friend EA Douglas was interviewed for it, which was very exciting. EA has written a piece or two about me for the Courier before I started with an editor position, so it's kind of fun to see that be full circle. But the piece also features writers like Jenna Lacombe, who I've worked with, I think, a couple of times on Capilano Courier pieces, but I feel like I've also heard around quite a bit. So it's really nice if you yourself are a writer, not just with journalism, because of course we talk about that all the time, but if you're interested in fiction or nonfiction, it's kind of nice to get to hear about other people on campus who are super involved in the writing world, which is cool. The other one I'd like to highlight is Nuances in the Commodification of Sex. Can pornography even be ethical? Eyebrow raise, I asked myself the same thing. A deep dive into the porn industry and the challenges and opportunities it presents for women.
That's so cool.
Such a good read.
That's such a good article.
Honestly, I'm so proud of this issue. I feel like it turned out so good. I'm really, really, really happy with how it turned out. So be sure to pick one up if you can find them. If not, they're online. But there's like really, really interesting reads here. I feel like we're progressing so much as a publication.
Yeah. It's so cool to see the Courier progress. Like compared to last year when we were doing, 20, 30 pages? Ridiculous amounts. That was just like tiny little booklet compared to now where it's like 72.
That's crazy.
Our last issue of the season, our April issue, which we're working on right now, is closer to 90. It's basically a book. It's massive. It keeps growing. I keep seeing the group chat where it's like, this word count keeps getting raised. And I was like, add another page, add another page. It's fine. We have room in the budget. Sorry, Terrence, we actually don't. But it's
We'll
okay.
be publishing a textbook. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's our last issue, so it's okay.
Well, it's exciting. I think, especially because we're saying goodbye to you as our EIC. Everyone get emotional, and I don't know what we're gonna do without you. And we're also preparing for our reissue event, which is an invitation-only event. But for many of you, which I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're probably a contributor. But for all of the people, is there an ant? Oh, sorry.
Is there an ant on the wall? There's another ant. We have an ant infestation in the office right now.
One other great thing that you could be a part of if you work for us.
Yeah.
Speaking of great things you can be a part of if you work for us, if you're a contributor or if you've ever contributed in the past, check your email because we will likely be inviting you to our reissue event, which is happening on April 12th. We're so excited. We've got so many things in the works. It's going to be such a fun event, and we're filming a live podcast. Of course. So get excited.
It's going to be so good. That's basically what Avery and I have been talking about for the past couple of weeks now.
Nonstop. Every time I see you. Yeah. Yep. It's going to be good.
It's going to be so much fun. Do you want to get a little sneak peek of what they can expect there?
What can you guys expect? Okay.
Oh my God.
First of all, you get to see the two of us live and in person doing a podcast.
So cool. And you might actually get to be involved somehow by asking questions.
I feel like we're so annoying. Okay.
We're so annoying. I know.
I hope that sounds like a good thing. There's also, because, as we were saying before, many of our issues are interactive, even the ones that aren't, you can take all of our old issues going back to quite a long time ago, and we're doing a big collage table. So we'll get you some cardstock, we'll get you all set up. We have to find a bunch of scissors for everybody. But when we do, you can cut up all of the old issues. Our feelings will not be hurt.
Nope.
And you can...
We have way too many,
so
please
it's okay.
take them.
You're behind a massive stack of issues right now, so it's okay. But you can make a nice collage for yourself, and it's also a good way if you've maybe done some contributing, but you're interested in an editor position or you want to know more about us, we'll be there in person. So it's a good way for you to get to know us as well. But yeah.
Totally. It'll be a great time. So please check your emails about that ASAP. They'll be coming out sometime next week, which will be by the podcast is out. So
yes. And if you're not a contributor and you're not involved on the back end of the Courier, you can see there will be tons of reels. We'll do a big video that we'll put out. There will be cool stuff. And also ask us some questions over our Instagram. Please, God. We're so desperate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. We will see you maybe at our reissue event, and if not, on our reels and on our podcast after that. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.